Hi, everyone. We're going to get started. So thank you all for being here. Hopefully, this is going to be of interest, and I'll be looking forward to your questions at the end of the session. So just to give you a little bit of context, I'm Rashad Chetty. I'm working for Duproprio Comfree. We actually have two brands. It's a company that's based in Montreal, Canada. So what we do is we're a marketplace for real estate. We help homeowners sell their homes, and we help potential buyers buy homes. We are one of the leading real estate marketplaces in Canada. We have over 6 million visits a month on our platform, and we actually help tens of thousands of customers either sell or buy on a yearly basis. What differentiates us from a traditional real estate agent, and this is important for the course of the presentation, is we're basically a flat fee brokerage. Like we don't base our services on a commission. We don't take a 5% average that any other brokerage takes in Canada. In the States, I know it varies by states, but I think the national average is around 6%. So that's actually what's happening in the States. So we are able to do that by leveraging technology, and a big portion of that is what we're going to cover in this presentation, to be able to provide our services to the masses for a fraction of the cost by centralizing most of the activities. And that's really the business value that we're bringing to the people, is you're actually getting all of those services that a traditional real estate agent would give you, but you're still in control of your sale, or you're still in control of your buy, and we're giving you all those tools to actually be efficient at it in terms of advertising for your property, getting the visibility you need, and getting all the coaching as well as the legal assistance that you need to get the deals closed. Just to give you an overview of what we're going to do, I'm just going to start with like where we started in this process of implementing lead management in an omni-channel context. Give you an overview of what we've done and what we were able to achieve. And then I just have a few examples of some of the customization that we did to Sugar in order to achieve that, as well as what we're actually expecting to move into forward next. So where we actually started, we have a business model that's quite different from the competition. We are not a traditional real estate agent, and we differ from that offering in many ways. First of all of our activities are centralized, while a traditional real estate agent is working only on the local market and has data for that local market and is only servicing a couple of dozens of deals on a regular basis. We're able to service whole Canada, tens of thousands of clients a year, and we're doing that all from a centralized office. So to do that, what we did is we built our proprietary platform, which is basically streamlining the whole real estate process. So we're managing from that platform everything from your home showings, your listing, your profile, the visibility that you actually get online, the attendance to those home showings, and everything that you actually need to be able to sell or buy a home efficiently. However, what we did lack, and that's where Sugar came into place, is the sophistication from a sales perspective. So everything related to servicing the client, providing our value, and getting them through that process, that real estate process, we did, and we mapped and we developed a platform for it. But in order to kind of achieve our own needs in terms of sales and marketing, we had to rely on something else because we lacked that sophistication, and there were better tools on the market to do it. So what we found in Sugar is essentially that it was easy to customize. It provided seamless integration with the rest of our ecosystem, and we're going to touch on that ecosystem because that's a big part of what we do in terms of lead management. And also, the most interesting feature for us was the automation. So we're making heavy use of the advanced workflow feature in order to automate most of the process. Just so you kind of understand where that falls into place, this is basically kind of our lead lifecycle. Okay, so we're really at a process where we're working on awareness, discovery, and decision. The awareness piece is really how we kind of advertise to the masses about the product. So it's a mix of both radio, TV, print ads, a lot of online ads, should it be on-site or off-site. So we're really heavily invested in digital marketing. Should it be banners, social marketing, search engine marketing, all that is part of our mixed strategy in terms of marketing. And we're also heavily invested in tracking. So that's a big part of having a lead management strategy work, is being able to track those interactions and actually reflect on those interactions and make use of that added data and added context to a transaction. So that's actually where it happens. So we do a lot of tracking. We have a lot of tools that enable cookie tracking, and that's all the process that's happening above, like upstream, before somebody kind of give us their details. What's happening next is through those channels, they get in contact with the brand. We have a strategy of landing pages as well as on the website of conversion. And we're actually leading all that traffic to convert into leads. And that's where we kind of gap the information that we gathered online in terms of their behaviors, their traffic, what are the pages that they've seen, what are the campaigns that we're in contact with, and what is the content that they reached out to, versus that information that we gather on the landing pages for their names, their phone number, their email, their address. Obviously, it's very local. So that's really where we kind of bridge the gap in between all that information that we gather on their behaviors online versus they're actually identifying that person to be able to follow up with that person. And the next step is really the decision. And this is where kind of we're talking omni-channel. So we're getting all of that context into what happened before the lead acquisition in terms of behavior and online traffic. And we're driving those potential customers to sales events and actual really sales-oriented campaigns. So what we're talking about is we're also doing trade shows. We're doing home consultations. We're doing free consultations, which are actually webinars that we do in person to provide context about the sale and the purchase of properties and how that applies to your local context. And we're also doing online webinars. So it's a mix of both marketing strategies to capture more leads and sales strategies that are both a tool for capturing leads, but also kind of closing the deal on the lead. So, and obviously at any point in time, in order for that strategy to work, we need to have a good portrait of the interactions that that customer or potential customer had with our system. Like, did they see an ad online? Did they actually get an email or subscribe to an email campaign? Have they went to a free consultation? Did they actually attend the webinar? All that is relevant for our salespeople to be efficient in their follow-ups. So how are we actually doing that? Sugar is central to that strategy. It's not the only tool we use, but it's the tool that's kind of pulling everything together and all the pieces together. So the way we achieve it essentially is through the use of real-time APIs in order to synchronize the data across all the systems, including our legacy system. We have a strategy around lead management and lead funneling, where we make heavy use of automation and advanced workflows. We decided to customize and extend the campaign module within Sugar to be able to reflect some of the campaigns that are actually not email-based necessarily. So everything that's a webinar, that's an info session, that's a trade show, we actually kind of expanded on the campaign module in order to do that and reflect that information within the system. And then workflow management, obviously with advanced workflow, is really a big piece of how we funnel those leads to the actual sales teams and the right sales teams. Because something that I didn't mention is essentially we are a big marketing company, but we also have different sales teams. We have outside sales, we have inside sales, and we also have the inside sales teams is basically divided into two. So the one that are actually receiving inbound calls and the one that are doing cold calling and outbound calls. So we needed to funnel the leads to the appropriate sales team based on the level of interaction that that customer had, because they don't have the same skill sets and they're not at the same level in terms of lead lifecycle. They're not going to be pushing on the same buttons depending on where you actually stand within that experience. So integration is key. Essentially, we're really using APIs to drive the whole omni-channel management. We're actually integrating with mainly most of these tools. So in terms of digital marketing, what we use is Google AdWords for everything that's search engine marketing. We use DoubleClick for everything that's online ads, should it be on-site or off-site. We use Unbounce, which is a provider for landing pages. That's where we manage all of our landing pages. We have obviously the website, and And we use Campaigner, which is the equivalent of MailChimp for everything that's related to emailing. We have GoToWebinar for all the webinars that we actually hold for our clients. And we have Google Analytics and Snowplow. Snowplow is the equivalent of Google Analytics, but with access to the actual data. Rather than just a view on that data, you actually have access to the raw data, so you can actually do a lot more with it than just with Google. Obviously, we have the service delivery part is our legacy system. And then in terms of reporting, we actually use Power BI. So that's the whole kind of life cycle or ecosystem that is managing our lead life cycle. And the way we actually using this is Sugar is at the center, and all those dotted lines are the current integration that we have. So Sugar is speaking to all of those systems on a real-time basis, and we're actually kind of funding all those leads that are coming in from those systems within Sugar, and making sure that all that information also translates into the legacy system at any time. The level of sophistication of those integrations varies from platform to platform. There are some platforms where we're looking to extend that, specifically Snowplow in terms of tracking. That's a really powerful tool that we actually have in terms of tracking behaviors, and we're really kind of at the infancy of the integration that we have with Sugar, and that's one of the things that we are looking to expand. Otherwise, all of the information regarding what is the channel you came from in terms of digital marketing, what are the events that you attended, should it be info session, a webinar, what are the landing pages that you visited, and which landing page did you actually subscribe with, so what's the value proposition that attracted you to actually create a lead. All that is actually tracked through those different tools, and all that information is translated back into Sugar. One of the key integrations for such a strategy to actually work is the integration with the legacy system. So as I said, our platform is really servicing our business value and making sure that a client has a perfect experience from start to finish. So from the sales perspective, all the way to the sale of their home and all of the customer experience lifecycle, we need to make sure that both systems were in sync. And we have a few concepts here that are really kind of proprietary to ours, which are your online profile as well as your online listing. So those are elements for which we kind of created custom integrations and custom module within Sugar, and making sure that the data was always in sync. So this is just only to portray that in order for the omni-channel strategy to actually work, you really need to make sure that that data is in sync across both systems, and the experience can actually fall through when you actually translate that lead from sales to customer service. It needs to keep on going, and all that information that you gathered within Sugar still needs to flow through your legacy system. So one of the things we decided is to make use of campaigns, as I said, to make sure that those campaigns extended to the reach of all of the strategy that we have. Should they be marketing campaigns or sales campaigns, we're really using the campaign tool not just for emailing, but also to keep track of all the interactions that we actually had with the customer. So the campaigns module was extended in order to be able to reflect things such as attendance to events, attendance to webinars. It's integrated with GoToWebinar directly. So whenever somebody actually goes to a GoToWebinar campaign, they attend the GoToWebinar, they see the video, all that information is translated back into the campaign module, so we can keep track of their interaction with that channel. Same thing with the street marketing events. So we have trade shows, we have street marketing, we hold info sessions. All that information that is key to those events is translated back into the campaign module. So we basically have campaign types in the module, and within the type of those campaigns, we're actually extended the data that we actually capture at any moment in time. And obviously, one thing that is kind of particular to our context is we have clients that are submitting, well, it's not particular to our context. I'm guessing many of you actually face the same difficulty, but the same client is gonna be poking on different landing pages and responding to different value propositions, and they created tons of leads. And in our particular context, it was a very deep problem because you have so many ways of interacting with us, from a trade show to an info session. We even hold contests. So it was not rare that a single individual actually signed up on 3 different landing pages in the same hour. So we're getting tons and tons and tons of duplicates. And this is really the way we decided to kind of resort to in order to be able to make sense of all that data and all that, that duplication. So now that same record, so those 3 leads coming in are really merged into just one. And we're just expanding that lead through different campaigns in order to reflect that data within Sugar and make use of it in terms of interaction management. Where we actually kind of use a lot of automation is in the advanced workflow. So in order for us to make sense of that information, we are obviously reflected into campaigns. However, whenever we get that information, what we want to do is make sure that it goes to the right sales team. So we have different sales teams. We have inbound and outbound from an inside sales perspective, and they're not following up with the same leads. The outbound sales team is more of a cold calling team, so they have more work to do in order to get the clients to actually subscribe to our services. The inside sales team that is really inbound, they just get the gravy team, like the gravy leads, like all those leads that are really kind of at the point of subscribing. And in order for us to determine that is really based on the behavior and the interaction that we captured. And the outside sales teams, they're just really involved with the events management, so should be info sessions, trade shows, and they obviously get different kind of leads that are assigned to them. So based on those interactions, what we do is we use workflows within advanced workflow, and based on the information we capture and the interaction that are happening, we kind of funnel the leads through our sales teams. And we also have workflows that are basically just rerouting the leads as the interactions happens. So we're not a company where the leads are assigned to an individual salesperson. They're really always assigned to the team, and it's a team effort. And obviously compensation is geared toward that. So nobody's really minding the leads actually shuffling through. So we're always making active use of the information we have to funnel the leads to the right sales team and rerouting the leads based on the interaction that are happening. And that's really done through advanced workflow and automation. In terms of results, just to give you kind of an idea, before we implemented Trigger, that rerouting and funneling of leads was done manually. So we were able to save close to 2,000 hours. So that's kind of one individual and his only responsibility at the time was just kind of funneling leads through. So he was getting the leads, he was kind of deduplicating that, he was assigning it to the right team, just making sense of all that, and we weren't even doing rerouting at that time. The only thing we were doing is, okay, it was on a first come, first serve basis, so they were getting a lead from a channel, everything else was kind of considered trash, and then they would assign it to a sales team. Now we're able to kind of save on that time, save on that resource, and at the same time, we added rerouting within the process. So when a lead is kind of in limbo within the sales teams and we don't see any progress, and a new interaction comes in that kind of sends you the signal that we should send it to another team, that's what we do. We just send it to the other team, and then the whole process kind of keeps on going from there. We were also able to cleanse the database from duplicates. We had close to 45% duplication within the database. And as I said, what really struck us when you kind of implemented Sugar is the level of duplicates that we had. It was really not rare for our client to actually come on the website and subscribe to 3 different channels at the same time because they kind of bumped onto the info session and they say, hey, that's interesting. So I subscribed to the info session. And then they kept on going and found out that we also offered free consultations. So the mindset was, well, I don't have to actually go there. They're going to come to me. So I sign up for a free consultation. And then we also have a contest. So if I have the chance of winning my package, why not? So they subscribe to that as well. So those are customers that obviously did a lot of digging within the website and to get to those different landing pages, but that was still happening. And this is actually the portrait of that. Like 45% of that database in terms of leads was duplicated content, duplicated information. We've also highly improved the data quality of our leads, as well as of our opportunities moving forward. And we also enhanced the relevance of follow-ups in that manner. Giving the visibility to our sales team to all those interactions in real time was really kind of a key driver into the level of follow-ups that we were able to provide to the customers. We were now able to kind of have the perception that they actually went to an info session, subscribed for a free consultation, and just making sense of all that noise that was previously not really kind of communicated to them because we were kind of trashed those leads beforehand. and they were not really kind of following up with all the information that they needed in order to do an efficient sales call. So that's really kind of one of the key improvements that we were able to provide there. Just to kind of show you some of the things that we did that are related to those strategies and those changes. We have a few customizations that we did, mainly related to campaigns, leads, and listings. Listings is really kind of our proprietary language to kind of speak to those that object that is a listing, an online listing for a property, either for sale or to buy. So this is basically the campaign module, and as I said, we extended the campaign module in order to be able to reflect different information depending on the campaign type. What we're looking at here is a campaign for an info session. So essentially the way this is extended is through the creation of an attendee module, and this is where we actually store all the information regarding to the attendance. So did they actually come in? Did they come in with their spouse? Did they come in alone? How many properties for sale is it about? That's how we kind of extended that module. The same kind of extension happens with GoToWebinar, except you're not going to see the same kind of information. What you're going to see is essentially what are their GoToWebinar URL, what is their attendance, did they watch the whole webinar, did they not, did they get the reminder. All that integration is happening within Sugar, and it's actually synced with GoToWebinar in real time. We are extending that module in other ways when it comes to digital marketing, and that's something that we're still expanding on and still experimenting with. It's also integrated with the legacy system. So basically, those same campaigns that are happening are also kind of reflected within the legacy system. And that's really more in terms of operation and internally within the sales team. So at the same time, those events are happening in Sugar, all that information is translated back within the legacy system, and we're actually able to funnel some of those sales that are happening at that event, because the info sessions is both a marketing tool as well as sales tool. A lot of our conversion to clients actually happens at the event. We have over 35% conversion at the events to actual clients. So we need to reflect that information right away within the system in order to be able to service them as soon as possible, because as soon as they convert, we need to schedule appointments. So this is one of the integrations that we had as well. Everything that's happening in the campaign module, the outcome of that is actually translated right away into the legacy system. This is probably not going to speak to much of you, but essentially one of the reasons that we chose Sugar was really customization. So we really were able to create a custom module for listings within the system that is translating on all the information that is relevant to real estate. So the property type, the property price, the date when online, the expiration date, because we work out of packages that have an expiry date, all that information that is relevant. And it's also tying back directly to the legacy system, so you can actually move from one system to the other just with a click of a button. As I said, we're struggling with duplicates a lot, so one thing we did was create what we called kind of a Deduplication Widget. So it's actually integrated within the side panel. And whenever you're actually trying to create a lead, based on the information you're actually typing in, before even hitting the save button and getting the duplicate check and prompt from Sugar, we're actually already looking at different accounts, should they be on the Sugar or on the legacy system, and we're pulling that information through for the client, for the user to actually see. So you type in this example, you just type in a phone number, so I have that hashed out, and we bring up all the contacts, the listings, the leads that are related to that same phone number for you to actually see. So you don't have to hit save, you actually just type in that information. We're already bringing all those potential duplicates up front, and you can make an advised decision as to should I actually go with an existing record or create a new record. And that's because we obviously have a big inbound team. A lot of our leads are actually coming in through phone calls. So this was of big use to the actual inbound team to actually make sense of that noise and those duplicates. Obviously, we're in real estate, so geography is really important for us. It's also a driver for the package you're gonna have access to. So one thing we did is we developed another widget that's basically driven from the database of Canada Post, which is our postal service in Canada. And the way it works is basically you just type in your postal code, and then we're just pulling in on the database to provide you with the exact address of the property, so you don't have to ask it from the client. And most of the time, clients are actually reluctant to give their address anyways because they're not at that level yet. They're not there in the life cycle. Like they just want to have key information. But since packages are driven by postal codes, that's usually some information that they hand out pretty easily. And then we're able to translate that into a specific address very easily and quickly with that integration without the rep having to type it in or even ask for it. So advanced workflows. You're probably not going to see much there, but it was just to kind of give you an overview. Essentially, what we have here to the right is the workflow to manage communications to the client when you actually subscribe to a webinar. So we have a couple. This one is pretty simple. It's essentially, okay, I subscribe to a webinar. So based on my geography and my language preference, we're going to send the appropriate communication to the client. That's really all that it does at this stage. It also updates the records within GoToWebinar, but that's not done through advanced workflow. It's done through kind of webhooks and fetches to the GoToWebinar interface. And on the left, what we have is one of the funneling workflows that we have in advanced workflows. So what this one does, essentially, based on a set of conditions, should they be level of interaction, geography, information relevant to the record, we're going to funnel that lead to a different sales team or individual. And we're also going to send communications to that same person to make sure that they keep on top of what they should be doing or what is the relevant information for them at that stage. So that's really kind of what we have in place. And we have more of those workflows going on. Those are just a few examples of how we kind of use the system to make sure that we funnel through those leads appropriately and accordingly. So what are we actually doing next? Obviously, it's a work in progress on our side. And what we are looking at is essentially richer integration, as I said, within Snowplow for analytics. So currently, we're just kind of, we scratch at the surface. We're kind of taking some of that information in. We're using it on the website, but we haven't actively used it to relate. Like we want to use it to better relate that marketing spending with where the channels that the lead are coming in Sugar. We're doing that today through the tools that we have from Google, should it be in search engine marketing or from Google AdWords. But we want to bring all that information back in Sugar to be able to make those adjustments with the actual sales information that we get from Sugar, rather than just from the tracking. So that's actually what I meant by tying back leads to actual marketing spend. That's really one way of doing it for us, was to kind of bring all the data that we are actually capturing on a daily basis through Snowplow, bring it up to Sugar, being able to tie those interactions back to the dime in terms of marketing spent, and how that information translates back into Sugar. We're obviously always looking at ways of improving on the automation that we have currently, and we're always working with advanced workflows. We're currently on 7.7, so we are looking at making the upgrades in order to benefit from some of the added features that came with the new versions for advanced workflows, and to introduce more sophistication there. And we're also looking at applying the same logic that we did for leads to opportunities. So right now we're kind of extended all that logic to leads and how we funnel it and everything. And now we're looking at how can we actually do that also for opportunities and map those same life cycles that we get for the opportunities within advanced workflows to make sure that we keep on touch of those funnelings and we keep on touch of that routing within the sales teams. So I went actually a bit faster than I expected here, but it's going to leave more time for questions if you have any. Hopefully you do and you thought that was interesting. So any questions?
On that last slide, if you wouldn't mind pulling that up again, they're tying back the actual spend to the lead.
Mm-hmm.
Could you mind talking about a few of your ideas on how you anticipate using Sugar to help you with that?
Yeah, so basically what we're doing is everybody kind of familiar with Google Analytics at kind of a certain level? Okay. Snowplow is basically exactly the same thing. Like, it tracks any interaction that you have online, should they be on your website or digital platforms. Tie that back with all the campaigns that we have, that you have online as well. The only difference is you actually have access to the raw data. So the identifiable data, quantifiable data. So what we are planning to do essentially is use that tool to take that data in and push it to Sugar at the time of the lead acquisition. So whenever a lead is captured, all the information regarding that behavior that preceded that capture and that is tied back to that cookie that has been tracked by Snowplow and that is now that we can now identify to a single individual, we're going to actually reflect all that information back in Sugar. Now you have a few decisions in terms of concept that you need to take in mind. Basically, what the route we decided to go was really kind of on last click because obviously all the information that we get is very rich. We have tons of interactions in terms of a digital landscape and digital interaction that you had with the brand. And the information that was relevant for us in terms of marketing spend was really kind of what was that last interaction. And we decided to start with that. We're just going to bring that last click interaction into Sugar and see how much did that last click cost, how much did, to which campaign it was related, on which network it happened, through which campaign, and just take that information back into Sugar. And then obviously that lead, once created, we're going to follow through with the opportunity with the actual money that is related to that one, and then just tie that back to the actual market spend for that specific campaign. So it's not a perfect strategy as you don't really get the whole landscape of activities or marketing spend that you had, but we're also able to get that information back from the actual systems that we use to get kind of an average, and then we're really getting kind of that capture moment, and we know specifically which campaign was related to that capture. Any other questions? Yeah?
So I guess a lot of the focus here is on, a lot of the focus here is clearly on acquisition and leads.
Mm-hmm.
But if I understand what you offer, I guess once you've got the lead and the sales process, do you use Sugar to monitor from the lead through to the end? And how do you use it?
Okay, so basically, what we do is we use the proprietary platform to service the service. So what we do is from the moment you actually pick on a package and you say, okay, I want to actually be a client with you, everything's happening on the proprietary platform because that's where you create your online profile, that's where you create your listing, and that's where we kind of manage the customer experience from selling your home or buying a home perspective. Everything before that we manage within Sugar. So obviously, buying or selling a home is a long process, and we don't have that many returning customers because we do, but I mean, the return is made over 7 years. That's basically the average that we have in the industry. You're only going to buy or sell a home if you're a residential owner over 5 to 7 years span. So basically, what we do is, and that's why we're so heavily invested in marketing. The way we actually acquire business through acquiring more market share from other competitors, right? So it's a finite market. There are only that many home properties that are going for sale for buy within a certain year. So it's not like we can expand the market. The only thing we can do is scratch market share from other competitors. So we're heavily invested in marketing, and Sugar is actually used to kind of support that strategy. So we have a big sales teams where you're talking about 100 salespersons internally that are really kind of managing to those clients that are potentially interested in the product. And everything from the sales perspective is done on Sugar. So follow-ups, calls, scheduling appointments with a client for in-home consultations. That's really how we use the tool internally to make sure that we are keeping up with our promise of giving them more information on the product and to make sure that we manage that life cycle at the upstream. Does that answer your question?
Partly.
Okay.
I'll catch up with you afterwards.
Okay.
Got a particular angle, so
Sure.
we're not wanting it.
That deduplication feature, did
Yep.
you do that in-house or did you work with a partner?
We did it in-house. So essentially, it's not very complicated, actually. What it does is, I'm just going to bring it back up. So essentially, what is happening here, we were not satisfied with the Sugar native implementation of duplicates. So if you have duplicates today, like you create a lead, you hit save, it prompts you with potential duplicates, and it's just within that same object, right? It's only leads, right? And the way this is actually happening is we could have that same person that since our product, the span of returning customers is actually 7 years, that could be a potential contact already in the database. That could also be a potential listing, right? Because what's happening too, one of the things that we're struggling with is You have the husband that's going to call in, and it's for a property, and then the wife is going to call back. And it's not the same phone number, it's not the same email, but it's the same opportunity for us. So we also needed to extend to the address component to make sure that we were catching on all the duplicates. So the way this works is essentially whenever you actually type in information within the record, and we have that in leads, but we also have it in contacts and opportunities, what it does is it makes use of the APIs that are provided through Sugar to actually check that information back against the actual records within Sugar. And we make use of the APIs of our proprietary platform to actually check against records in our legacy system.
On input pre-save?
Yeah, it's on input just pre-save. So as soon as you input and you hit tab, you go to another field, it's going to go check through use of APIs within all the modules of Sugar for phone number, email, name, address, you name it. Other question? Perfect. Well, I hope you actually enjoyed the presentation. I went a little bit quicker than I expected, but if you have any other questions, if you want to dive into more details, I'd be happy to actually answer any question you might have. Thank you.